Sonic Prime is a 6 TV show based on the titular Blue Hedgehog, which was created by Man of Action Entertainment and WildBrain, and it's all about Sonic going through different dimensions similar to his own to reconnect with his friends and save his world. Okay, wiki synopsis done, now it's time to add my own opinions. I don't like Sonic Prime.
I beg your pardon?
Okay, put the pitchforks down, that's not entirely true. I do like 3 things about the show, like Shadow's characterization is the best it's been since 2006, the animation's great, I like the voice of Shadow. Okay, long story short, I'm not a big fan of the show due to a lot of issues, mostly due to writing. As a long-time fan of the franchise, I don't feel like the show does a real big justice to any of the characters in the show, outside of Shadow, but he's pretty underutilized, so we could just put that one away. To start, I'd say the biggest flaw in this show, and honestly kills any emotional moment the show goes for, is that we don't really get a chance to know the original versions of these characters. This is mostly due to the show cutting straight to the big shatter incident like 3 minutes in, so we don't really get to spend any time with these characters in the present. By that, I mean throughout the first season we'll get flashbacks back to the main versions of these characters and their interactions with Sonic, which sure, is nice, but it will kill the pace from whatever's going on in that episode, and should have made them realise starting the main conflict of your show so early on wasn't the best idea. Something I thought when they announced the first episode was 40 minutes long. I imagined it would introduce us to these versions of the characters and have the shatter incident be more of a cliffhanger. You know, I get it, you gotta get your hook in early so viewers don't click off, but maybe if you put it at the end of the episode, it would give them more of an incentive to keep watching and, you know, what happens next. It would probably also salt the pacing out a lot. Now, I don't like saying I can do better than these things because we have proof that none of us probably can, but I feel like having all of this in the first episode would ease the pacing of every other episode following it. I think they knew having no real screen time of the original versions of these characters was a bad idea because they just decided to say that the show was canon, which I see as them wanting you to actually feel the emotional moments if they're saying that they're the same versions of the characters from the modern games. The show being canon doesn't work because it apparently takes place sometime in the future, which presumably takes place after Frontiers, which brings up the question like, where's Sage? How come Sonic has gone backwards when it comes to his maturity? Where are any of his friends outside of the main 3 and Rouge and Shadow? Stuff like that makes it feel less like a statement and more like a cheap tactic at the heartstrings for us to care about these cardboard cutouts of classic Sonic characters. Now I feel this show's most lacking area is its version of the multiverse called the Shatter Space. You see, in 2018, a little movie called Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse released to critical acclaim and has impacted cinema to a huge scale, like more stylized animation, choppy frame rates, and the one that's caught on the most everywhere being the Multiverse. After this movie released, everyone wanted their own multiverse, but none have really worked as well as Spider-Verse due to a singular reason, being the multiverse wasn't the main thing of the movie. It was a perspective to tell its story about coming of age, expectations, breaking off your own set path, and doing your own thing. Now, I'm not saying I want the Sonic show for Netflix to be as good as an Oscar-winning movie. I wish it understood what made these films so revolutionary and learn from it. Sadly, they didn't learn from it and they just made the multiverse as a gimmick to sell toys, like it's Sonic's world, but it's pirates, or it's Sonic's world, but the jungle. Clearly, each of these shatter spaces has a central character, the New York City being Tails, Jungle being Amy, and Pirates being Knuckles. But due to not knowing the core versions of these characters, I see them just like designs or alternate costumes to sell toys, not like a real character. Honestly, come to think of it, you could just say that Prime saying it's canon is just nostalgia baiting, which a lot of these multiverse films and TV shows seem to do, but I don't think I want to go that far because I think Sega's just been like trying to get everything together, you know, brand consistency, you know. Now that I've got a lot of my personal grievances out, like I'd like to talk about some of the stuff I actually liked about this show, you know, not making me a total negative Nancy and being Sonic Twisted's #1 target for the week. Like I said at the beginning, this version of Shadow is written spectacularly and seems to be a character the team knows how to write really, really well. But they don't treat him as a villain or an antagonist, but more someone with the same motivation as Sonic, but not seeing the variants as their own people and more alternate versions of their friends. I feel not allowing him to travel to each shatter space was a real big letdown since it practically wrote him out of the plot entirely. Also, it was a huge kick to the face as the marketing made it out as if Season 2 was a Sonic and Shadow buddy cop season, but maybe Season 3 might be the season to do that, but I won't get my hopes up. I'd say the show's biggest highlight is its animation, with every character being able to squash and stretch between poses. It really makes every character feel so alive and I love it to bits. I think it's shown off best in battles throughout the show. I'd say it's at its best between the few fights between Sonic and Shadow, since it's not the most generic robot you've ever seen, which doesn't even squash and stretch at all to my knowledge. And yeah, that's all my positives I have. So that was my review of Sonic Prime. Did I end up enjoying it? No, not really. I mean, sure, there are elements I definitely like, but they're very few and far between. I think the concept for the show is really good, but would work more as a future game or an arc in an IDW comic, you know? Something that's established, you know, its world and characters, so you're more apparent on the changes between them. Also, I think the show ended up being targeted to a way younger age demographic that I feel could alienate older fans. You know, when you've got lines like,
"Whoa, Tails looks upset."
And Tails never gets upset.
My final thoughts on the show is, it's just not for me. And that's okay. I feel we're in an era that's more able to cater to different age demographics and fans due to the amount of different types of media we're getting nowadays. Like take right now for example, the mainline games taking a more seemingly mature style compared to the last decade, the Sonic movies that are for kids that are trying to get into Sonic, Sonic Origins is a way for those kids to play the original Genesis games, and Sonic Prime is a way for those kids who've just watched the Sonic movies can watch Sonic at home. Sure, by the way I described that it seemed like they're catering more to kids than long-time fans, but we're still getting our fair share of stuff like Sonic Frontiers, the murder of Sonic the Hedgehog, the IDW comics, and Sonic Superstars. We can now live in a world where we can all enjoy our own Sonic at the same time. And you know what? That's pretty cool. I know I'm releasing this before the release of the first season, but due to how Netflix is known to cut up one season into 2 or 3 parts, so they don't have to pay for a second season, I don't imagine they'll take any of the criticism into consideration. Oh wait, I didn't talk about the egg cancel. Fuck!